Good morning, everyone. I don't know whether, it's telling me that we have gone live to Instagram. So, hello to everybody if you're in Instagram world. I've been trying to sort out how to go live to Instagram and Facebook at the same time, and it's always a nightmare. And I always end up starting my lives going, shit, I'm not live on Instagram, but I actually think I am this time. So, hello to everybody in Instagram world. Hello to everybody in Facebook world. Hello to everybody in YouTube world. This morning, we're going to talk about point of lay chickens versus baby chicks. And what it comes down to is what's going to be best for you. So when I say point of lay, in case you don't know, because there's never any silly questions when it comes to livestock, I still learn every single day. So I could imagine that everybody else learns every day as well. And that's a good thing. So point of lay chickens, I'm just moving my screen so I can see better. Point of lay chickens are chickens that are at the point of lay. They're ready to lay eggs. Now, I think people think that chickens are just born being able to lay eggs sometimes. They're not. So you get baby chicks. We buy chicks as day olds because we raise them from baby status because they're cheaper that way. So we have all the infrastructure set up. But what we need to do is work out for you which is going to be best. So baby chicks, a lot of people have a very romanticized view of what it's like to raise baby chicks. And, for the most part, that's correct. They're gorgeous. You can handle them a lot while they're little. Excuse me, let me have a sip of my coffee. You can handle them a lot while they're little. If you've got children in the house, having day-old chickens is the best. Kids love day-old chicks. They love watching them grow. They love handling them. They're small. They don't pose any kind of threat to children at that size. In fact, it's the other way around. The children generally pose a threat to the chicks. So you do have to be mindful that the kids don't squeeze them too hard or hold them too hard. But having day-old chickens does require some infrastructure. And the kinds of things that you'll need is a very safe, excuse me, I'm a bit croaky this morning, a very safe enclosed area that you can keep your chicks in. Now, that enclosed area needs to have bedding on the ground that's suitable to soak up all their manure. And they need to have a proper chick feed, which is like a crumble. It's like pellets that have been crumbled into smaller pieces to make it easier for them to eat. They need a watering system. But most importantly, they need a heat lamp of some kind. Now, when I say heat lamp, I don't mean a electric heat lamp beating down on them. That's not ideal. It can be done that way, but you really want to be home all the time watching them. We use a brooder plate, which is a structure. It's a flat plate that heats up and it has 4 legs on it to hold it a certain distance off the ground. Now, the reason it holds a certain distance off the ground is to give the chicks space to walk underneath it and sit underneath it to stay warm, but they can also move out from under it without any problems. And it also, if it's depending on how high it is, will reduce the layer of heat that's coming out of it. So as our chicks get older, we put extra legs in and raise it up a little bit higher. So there's a bit more distance between them and the heat source, just so that they start getting used to the fact that they're not having that permanent heat source really warm on them. Now, I think it's a couple of degrees each day that it should be changed over the course of about 6 weeks. We have a brooder house set up that we've got an outside area attached to. So once the chickens get to about 6 weeks old, they're usually fully feathered by then. And that is they've lost all that fluffy down and they go through a very awkward adolescent period where they have half fluff and half feathers and they look a little bit weird. But once they're fully feathered, then they can retain their own heat. Once they get to that point, you can let them go outside. Now, we graduate that. So we let them go outside for a little bit of time each day, and it gets longer and longer each day until they're usually about 10 weeks. By 10 weeks, you can introduce them to other chickens if you have them, or introduce them to an outside shelter. Now, that being said, there's a caveat on that. Obviously, if you live in the very, very northern parts of the states or the very, very southern parts of Australia like we do, play it by ear depending on the time of year. If it's freezing cold and snowing, then obviously that is not a great time to be putting 10-week-old chickens out into a coop. But you can put them out there if you're in those lovely tropical areas in Queensland or Florida or anywhere like that, then go ahead, put them outside. For my UK friends, Your weather is so changeable. If you're south of London, then you probably could put them outside after 10 weeks, depending on the weather. Anything north of, I think it's about, or anything north of York, which I know, I've been to the UK, so I know York, anything north of there, you wouldn't be putting them out unless you knew that you had good weather coming. I think it would just get way too cold for them, but your weather is very changeable, so it would depend. So the baby chickens, once they get to that 10-week mark, they can go outside, but you're not going to get eggs out of them until around the 18 to 24-week mark, depending on the breed of chicken. So Isa Browns, who are predominantly bred just for laying eggs, they start laying around that 18-week mark. Some of the heritage breeds will not start laying until 24 weeks. So you have 24 weeks of feeding, housing, and caring for chickens before they will produce any eggs for you. Now, if you're happy to wait and you just want the idea of raising your own chickens and having them very, very tame, because believe me, if you head raise chickens, they will be very tame if you handle them all the time. You will have chickens that literally will come to their name. We have Goat Chicken who follows the handy helper around all the time, and she was hand raised and we incubated her egg, so we actually hatched her egg out. We didn't buy her as a day old, which is a whole nother story. I'm not going into that one today. Now, the other alternative for you is to go straight to the point of lay chickens. Now, the point of lay chickens are the ones that you generally see in the Tractor Supply store, the produce store for us in Australia, or you might see people selling them online where they say, I've got a point of lay chicken, or they'll say POE, a POL chicken, and I want to sell it. Now, it's more expensive to buy. You may be looking at, I've seen birds go, like heritage breeds, birds go for $40, $50, $80, depending on the breed. But they've also done all the hard work. They've raised the chicken from a day old. They've got it through that risky period, which the first couple of weeks, usually the first couple of days, is the riskiest period. They've got it through that period. They've raised it to the point where it is at the point of laying eggs. So it may mean it hasn't laid an egg yet, but it's at an age where it's doing all the things that indicate it's about to start laying. And there's some chicken behaviors that indicate that a bird is about to start laying. So when they say point of lay, that usually means fully grown, fully formed, and starting to display those signs of getting ready to lay an egg. When you buy them, obviously you might have a week or two to wait. Sometimes it could be a little bit longer. They might say, oh, look, they're 18 weeks old, but they might be heritage birds. So you could have 6 weeks to wait where you have to feed them before you start getting eggs off them. But they are very, very close to that point. And you don't need heat lamps. You don't need special brooder houses. You don't need any kind of special protection or food or anything like that. You just need the normal level of protection for your chickens and the normal type of food for your chickens. And we'll discuss food later in the week. So that's the difference between a baby chick and a point of lay chicken. Whichever one is going to be right for you, it will be completely individual and your choice. If you have children in the house, I would encourage you to look at the idea of getting baby chicks. I think it's a really good learning experience for kids. Certainly my kids have watched incubated chicks. They've watched day-old chicks. They've helped out with cleaning, feeding, doing all the things for day-old chicks, and they have loved it. They absolutely, it was such a thrill for them. So I can't say that enough. If you've got kids, consider that option. If funds are a bit tight, you may want to do the day-olds as well, because it's going to be cheaper. If funds aren't tight and you want heritage birds and you want laying birds right now, then I would say go for your point of lay birds. Just be prepared to shop around and see what people have got. You may not be able to get the breed you want at the time you want. So you may have to wait. You may have to hunt around. Sometimes, certainly, we've bought livestock from other states where we've had to have the livestock shipped to us, and that includes fertilised eggs. We've had to have fertilised eggs shipped to us. But our goat buck, Rocky, he came from Rockhampton, hence the name Rocky. And he was bought from a breeder who had bred him herself, and he was a purebred Anglo-Nubian buck, and we had to pay to have him transported down. And there are people that will transport chickens as well. So heritage breed chickens who are a very specific breed, can be transported. Now, at the moment in Australia, there's some avian flu, and because of that, there may be some restrictions on which states and where you can purchase and send birds from and to. So you need to check into that. But that's how generally people get heritage breeds birds from one area to another area when there's no local breeder. So that's point of lay versus baby chicks. If you have any questions, by all means, send me a direct message. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and it's working on Instagram this morning, which is awesome. YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter, although I don't use that for much homesteading stuff. But send me a message if you've got any questions about that. If you haven't already, down the bottom, you will see www.mojohomestead.net/coops. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m, I am doing a free webinar. Now, even if you can't be there at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, I would encourage you to register for it because 2 reasons. One is you'll get sent a copy of the webinar, so you can just watch it in your own time, in your own space, without any problems. You don't need to be on the webinar live, although I would love you to be there live. And the second thing is there will be a bonus. So at the moment, my backyard chicken keeping course is open for registration, and I encourage you to go and have a look at that. However, on the webinar, I would say don't buy it yet. I know that sounds counterintuitive. Don't buy the course yet. Go and have a look at the webinar. So register for it if you're at all interested, because there will be a bonus at the end of the webinar. And that bonus will give you an extra course that I have. It's only a mini course, but who doesn't love a freebie? I love a freebie. So yeah, if you're interested at all, go and have a look. Register. Down the bottom, you'll see /coops is the place to go to register for that webinar. Like I say, even if you can't be there, you'll be sent a copy of the webinar after it's complete, and that will have the bonus still attached to it, so you can still apply that bonus, but you have to be registered to get it. So, and it's worth it. I think it's worth it. If you're at all interested in homesteading or breaking up with your supermarket, then it's definitely worth being on the webinar to get that extra bonus. Anyway, that's it for me this morning. I'm going to go and finish my coffee, and I have some baby goats to go and manage. I hope you have a great Sunday. I know this one was a really early one, so happy Saturday for my friends overseas, and happy Sunday for everybody here in Australia. And it's also the 1st of spring today, 1st of September, first day of spring. And given the Arctic winds that we've had here in the southern New South Wales area over the last couple of days, I am really looking forward to spring hitting. It would be really nice to have some warmer weather. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. I won't be on live tomorrow. I'll be on the webinar. So make sure you're registered for it. If you're registered, I will see you tomorrow morning. Bye for now.